Archana is here. Welcome to the 14th session of presentation, ICSE Class 9, Paper 2, Literature in English. In today's session, let us deal with the poem Daffodils, written by William Wordsworth. The background of the poem. The poem was written in 1804, inspired by an event on 15th April 1802, in which Wordsworth and his sister Dorothy came across a long belt of daffodils while travelling in the Lake District of England. It was first published in 1807 in poems in 2 volumes, and a revised version was published in 1815. As for the theme, the poem is all about the beauty of nature. The major theme of the poem is beauty of nature. Wordsworth is often termed a nature lover. Here you can see a handwritten manuscript of the poem Daffodils, written by William Wordsworth, and it is found in British Library. Now let us deal with the poem.
Pearls of Wisdom, Daffodils by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze.
In the first stanza, the speaker describes how he walked around and felt as lonely as a cloud. He doesn't say walked around, but uses the much more descriptive word wandered. Wandered means roaming around without a purpose, like when you explore something. The first concept that we want to take a look at is that the cloud is lonely. Are clouds lonely? Well, maybe the ones that float about valleys and hills are lonely. It is more likely the speaker is projecting his own loneliness on the clouds. But that still doesn't explain the strange image, because clouds usually travel in groups. Suddenly, all at once, the speaker sees a group of daffodils. We tend to think of daffodils as yellow in color, but he uses the more majestic sounding word golden. He calls them a crowd, so they must be packed tightly together. Then he elaborates on crowd by adding the noun host. A host is just a big group. Yes, host and crowd mean pretty much the same thing, but that is where the connotations come in. Those vague associations that attach to certain words. A crowd is associated with groups of people, while host is associated with angels, because people often refer to a host of angels, coupled with the description of their angelic golden color. We seem to be dealing with some very special daffodils. He sees the daffodils beside a lake and underneath some trees. It is a breezy day, and the flowers flutter and dance on their stems. Now, let us just step outside the poem for just a second to note that Wordsworth lived in a part of England known as the Lake District, which is filled with lots of hills, valleys, and of course lakes. We can assume he is walking in a fairly remote and wild part of the countryside. Now, back to the poem. Fluttering suggests flight, which could bring us back the angels or even birds or butterflies. Dancing is something that usually only humans do. The daffodils are given the qualities of humans and also of some kind of otherworldly creatures, perhaps. So, in the first stanza, the poet says that he was wandering lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills. The phrase refers to him being roaming around without any purpose. He was all alone like a cloud that floats high in the valley. Usually, the clouds are not alone. But here, the poet probably refers to a fragment of the cloud that moves among the hills in the valley, unlike the clouds that are full of rain and thus move in purpose. This fragment has no particular direction to move and just roams around above the valley. While roaming in the valley, he suddenly sees a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. The words crowd and host mean a large number of people. Hence, the poet uses personification and attributes the human qualities to daffodils. Here, the word meaning personification is giving life to the lifeless things. For example, a mirror is singing, a mirror is dancing, a mirror is laughing. A mirror is a lifeless thing. We are giving life to the mirror by telling that it is dancing. A mirror is dancing. A mirror is singing. A mirror is laughing. Giving life to the lifeless thing. So here, poet has given life to the daffodils by addressing them as a crowd, a host. The poet calls daffodils golden rather than yellow in order to express their majesty and beauty. According to the poet, he sees a large number of daffodils where? Beside the lake, beneath the trees. That is, along with the shores of the lake and below the trees, because they are small. Where does the poet sees a large number of daffodils? Beside the lake and beneath the trees. The daffodils seem to be fluttering and dancing in the breeze. In a way, the poet imagines as if the daffodils possess the qualities of both those of the world and the meta world. Now, let's deal with the second stanza.
Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads and sprightly dance.
Poet, in the second stanza, emphasizes the point that there are a whole lot of daffodils, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. More daffodils than he has probably ever seen before. After all, these are flowers that usually grow in scattered groups in the wild or in people's well-tended gardens. The flowers stretch continuously without a break, like the stars in the Milky Way galaxy, each one gleaming like a star. The comparison to stars provides new evidence that the speaker is trying to make us think of angels or other heavenly beings. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. Like the Milky Way galaxy, the flowers are roughly concentrated in a line that seems to stretch as far as the eye can see. That is never ending. They means flowers line the shore margin of a bay of the lake, which must be a relatively large lake. You know that the galaxy appears to be a band that has more stars and a brighter appearance than the night sky around it. It is not a perfectly clear line, but more like a fuzzy approximation of a line. We imagine the same effect with the flowers. It is not as if there are no flowers outside the shore of the lake, but most are concentrated on the shore. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads on sprightly dance. The speaker takes in 10,000 dancing flowers at once. That is a lot of daffodils. Wow, he's fast at counting if he knows the number after only a quick glance. But, of course, the speaker is not actually counting, but just guessing. The flowers toss their heads while dancing to the wind. Sprightly means happily or merrily. The word derives from sprite, which refers to the playful little spirits that people once thought inhabited nature. Sprites are supernatural beings, almost like fairies. So let's sum up the second stanza. The second stanza begins with the comparison between daffodils along the lake and stars in the Milky Way. The poet says that the daffodils stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. The bay here refers to the lake. According to the poet, the daffodils which covered the shore of the lake seemed to be unending, like the stars in the sky and like them, the stars of Milky Way. They were too twinkling. The phrase 10,000 saw I at a glance is a hyperbole. That means the poet saw a large number of daffodils which he could not count. The word meaning hyperbole is exaggerated statements, that is not meant to be taken literally. For example, I saw cats wearing hats and jackets. Or else, I have a million things to do today. I'm exaggerating the things that I have many things to do today. Can I wind up million things in a day? No, never. It's impossible. But I'm exaggerating that I have lots of work to complete today. So the word meaning of hyperbole is exaggeration. Here, the poet is exaggerating the thing that he has seen 10,000 daffodils in one glance. It's impossible, right? The daffodils were tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The word head here refers to the top flower part of the plant. Sprightly dance means lively and jubilant dance. The daffodils were thus moving their heads, that is flowers, in a rhythm which looked quite amazing and seemed to the poet as they were dancing. So here today we have learned first and second stanza of the poem Daffodils written by William Wordsworth. In the next class we shall deal with the rest of the stanzas. Before we wind up, take down the homework. Write the summary of the first two stanzas of the poem Daffodils. Thank you, students.